Feel like a failure in your early 20s. I've been there. So I assume you've clicked on this video because you're feeling like a failure. You're going through a stage of your life where you've got nobody to turn to. You're feeling like you're being left behind in life. You might be stuck somewhere that you don't want to be, where there's no inspiration for your life. You're not motivated to do anything, and you're just looking for an escape, but you're not sure where to turn. So if you stick around, I'll go through my story about how I overcame adversity and I absolutely transformed my life. It was a tough journey to get out of the situation that I was in, but I'm here to tell you that you can do it. So stick around and I'll show you my story, and hopefully you can take some advice and apply it to your own life. So I was your typical working class white male from the UK. I was born to teenage parents. That was never a good start for me. Where did my problems start from to get to having a really bad early 20s? So I think it really started when I dropped out of college straight after school. I won't go too much into that, but I dropped out. Started working in factory jobs with no real end goal in sight. I was living for the weekend. The only reason I did these factory jobs because I just had no qualifications, or I just did not know what to do. And I saw all of my friends around me doing exactly the same thing. We all just lived for the weekend. We worked to earn money to just drink ourselves stupid for 3 or 4 days, starting Thursday to Sunday, and then feeling like shit for the rest of the week. Drugs came into the scene because we used to go clubbing all the time. And I know a lot of young people do that, and I know it's part of the process of growing up, but if you really think about it, it does take you down the wrong path. And you waste all your money and the time. You know, when your development in your mind and your body has been poisoned by alcohol and drugs. I'm not here to say they're bad, but that is a big distraction in life. I didn't really have my relationship with my real father was destroyed pretty much. And then I had a stepfather. But to be fair, you know, he was a good provider, but he wasn't there to really put me personally and my brother onto the right path. So I feel like I never had a strong father figure or a strong male role model in my life to sit me down and say, you know, Paul, do you think what you're doing is good for your life, and do you think you should be doing something better? So, you know, when there's no strong male role models in life, then like, what are you supposed to do? As I mentioned, a lot of my friends, we were all in the same boat. We were all, I'd hate to say it, but bad for each other, because not one of us sat and realised that, you know, what we were doing was like shit. And we weren't really progressing in life. So yeah, that's kind of how it all started. I wasn't really into fitness when I was growing up, so I was pretty not fat, but I had some weight on me. Didn't really play any sports apart from the odd football game, so there was no consistency in life. I had a string of like failed relationships in my late teens, early 20s, and I understand why as well, because women won't stick around if you don't have any purpose in your life, or you don't have any motivation. I was never a man to moan. I was never a young man to moan in life, because I was always happy and always tried to get on with it. But to be fair to the women that I was with, they were never going to stick around, because they could see that I was slowly descending into a dosser and a bum. I don't actually think I knew who I was as a person as well. I didn't have any real values. I didn't know how to set any true values in my life. I didn't know who I was. Yeah, I was a good person deep down, and I knew how to treat people, but I just didn't know what my values were. And essentially that meant I did not know who I was. You know, and then when my stepfather left our family when I was around about 23, I was really left hung to dry, like in a world where I was trying to find some guidance. And as we know, it's important to have strong male role models in your life, because it's these men that should really be helping you to drill down what your values were. So anyway, everything was coming to a head, and I was just, what do we call it, coasting through life. So as I'm going through that loser stage still, I did starting to go clubbing a little bit further afield from where I lived. So I actually did start meeting people. And when I started talking to these people and finding out that they were not to go into each particular person's profile, but when I was talking to them, here's me working in a factory, dossing around, and these people, they're not that upper class people or middle class, but they were definitely, in my mind, they were definitely doing better things in life than what I was. And you know what? Can you relate to it? Because I absolutely felt embarrassed. And you know what I had to do to try and like be accepted and fit in and not feel like a loser? Was I felt like I had to lie, and I did. I lied to try and make my life feel better, because I was so embarrassed about telling people that I worked in a factory. And you know, I did carry a lot of shame about that, but that's the scenario that I was in. And I'm sure there's other people that might have felt that way, feeling really embarrassed about their lives, that they have to like tell little white lies just so people, just to be accepted and for people to like you. Everything was accumulating. I had a very kind of like, the experience I was having was I was feeling left behind in life, and I just accepted that this was my life and I should just accept it. And then when I think about it, like where I grew up was a very small village. It was like an old pit mining community, so there was no inspiration there. It's not the village's fault, it's just there was no inspiration, and you know, there's no decent community to try and put me on the right path. And I'm not here to blame anybody at all. You can only ever but blame yourself in life, but when you're young and developing, you do need strong people in your life. So there's no blame here, but like I said, young men do need strong people in their life to help guide them, and I had nobody. So yeah, when I was reaching about 23, I hit my rock bottom moment. I think at 23, 24, I actually hit my rock bottom, and I'm not surprised, because I probably had it coming to me. Like I said, I wasn't a bad person at all, but the accumulation of everything that I've just told you really started to get pressurised. And there was one evening that I went out into a local town and with a few of my mates, and we took cocaine with us. So my rock bottom moment was that I got caught sniffing cocaine in a toilet in a club, and I got arrested for it. I got arrested, spent the night in the cell, like feeling really bad about my life. And yeah, I went to court for it. Sorry to stumble there. I went to court for it. I was worried that I might get sent to prison, and then, you know, thinking about what my life would turn out to be then. Thankfully, I only got a fine and a criminal record for possession of drugs. But for me, that was my absolute rock bottom moment. And I don't mind sharing this, because I know deep down I wasn't a bad person. I was just so misguided, and you know, it definitely was my fault for my rock bottom moment. But I think that had to happen. In fact, I know that had to happen to me to really make me see the light. So after the scenario of going through the process of attaining a criminal record for my rock bottom moment, you know, after that I started to like fall into depression, and my mental health really started to suffer as well, because I could not even see a way out of the situation, and getting a criminal record actually made me worse as well. So I started drinking more, I started taking more drugs, and just started absolutely going off the rails. Yeah, like I said, I was getting depressed, and do you know what? I was actually thinking about deletion as well, because I had nothing, I had nobody. I was still living at home. Like I said, my stepdad left. Like my mum was not helping me at all, and I just thought the best option is to delete. I never did that, because I think deep down that I was too strong to do that, but the thoughts were going through my mind at the time. So fast forward to when I was about 25, I actually met a girl clubbing, and we had a short-term relationship. And I'm really thankful to this woman as well, because it was her that told me that, you know, there was a way out of this life. And my way out of this life was actually going to university, because at the time, you know, I didn't even have the internet at home. So like, I was like, not like everybody now, where you can just like type anything to Google and find out what you can do, or look on YouTube. Like, I had nothing. I didn't have this YouTube thing like to try and listen to people who might, you know, listen to strangers on the YouTube trying to like help you. I had nothing. But this one girl said, you know what, Paul, in your situation, you're probably better off going to university here to get you moving and get you out of the place that you're in. So yeah, so my turning moment was meeting this person and actually going through the process of Going to university. So I know that you don't have to go to university to turn your life around, but for me it was a new thing. It was something new that took me out of that situation that I was in. And you know what? When I started applying and I went to have my interview at the local university, I was so afraid that they wouldn't let me in because of my criminal record. And you know what? When I sat in front of this woman on the interview process, I was completely transparent with her, and she actually understood because she could see the potential in me as well. So that's what you need. You need someone to see that potential and not let one misdemeanor in your life that completely ruin your life, and it didn't. So that for me was my absolute turning point. And from that, it pulled out a lot of my motivation in life as well. It pulled out a lot of my self-confidence, and it made me actually think that I wasn't a loser. I was just in the wrong scenario. I was just so misguided, and yes, I was an absolute fool as well. I was a fool for letting myself go into that situation. But thankfully, I'm actually thankful that I had the opportunity, like a rebirth in life at a critical time in my life in my early 20s. I felt like my mental health was really improving as well, because I was doing something that I felt that everybody else was doing. So I actually felt like I was in a community again. While I was at university, I finally moved away from the place that I lived. I finally got out. When I picked my bags up and said adios, and I went to live in a couple of cities as well, which absolutely made my life even better, because I was meeting new people. My life wasn't perfect. I was still coming out of that mentality of how much of a loser I've been in the past, but I just had to be patient with the process and keep motivated and just doing new things in life. Like my fitness improved. I was never the fittest guy in my early 20s, but I started playing more sports. I got heavily involved in football, which I really enjoyed, and just the fact I was learning science as well, and I was actually doing quite well at it, it just made me realise that I knew that this is something I'd always wanted to do. I just didn't have anybody to bring it out of me. And I know it's sad to say, but when you, like me, if you find yourself that you're improving and you make a big motivational move in your life, something that's going to benefit your life, you'll find that people do start dropping away from you. And people that were in that negative situation with you, I'm afraid to say, but you might have to cut contact, because when you want to improve, it's time to cut contact with people that aren't willing to. And you know what? Maybe you can try and take people on that journey with you. But for me personally, I had to go on this alone. So people will try and drag you back. That is 100% the truth, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people can attest to that and agree with that. But if you want to make some real changes, then you've got to move away. You've got to pull yourself away from those situations and those people. So I know it's sad to say, but that's another aspect. When you're trying to improve and you want to make a big change in life, and move away from being a loser to a winner, you've got to cut ties. And another positive aspect of the transformation that I made was I actually did not feel like I needed to tell little white lies to people anymore, because I actually felt like I was doing something important, and because I was mixing with new people, and I felt like inside I was improving myself. And I wasn't working in factories anymore. I just felt like I was in a position where I did not need to try and fit in by telling little white lies about how much better my life was than it actually was in reality. And that felt good to me. It was a rough ride in my early 20s, and yes, I absolutely felt like a loser. So if you're still watching this video, and you feel like a loser, you don't have to follow what I did, because the world has changed since I made that transition. Let's say 20 years ago, roughly 19, 20, 21 years ago. I know the world's changed, but it doesn't matter whether you try and go to university or you get a trade, or become an entrepreneur or whatever. Any change is good to get you out of a bad situation. So I assume the reason you're listening to this is because you're in that situation. So I just want to say thank you for tuning in, and thank you for listening. And there's a final note on this as well, and I think it's important to realise that when you're trying to make a change, you're not trying to jump a million steps forward, unless you've got people around to help you do that and the resources. I didn't personally. I just made a massive leap of faith, and I took a few steps forward, and it got me onto the right path. You know what? In terms of like the self-comparison, yeah, in other people's eyes, I might have still been a loser. But in my mind and my heart, I wasn't a loser anymore, okay? So you still might get people saying you're a loser or thinking you're a loser, but it depends on what you think. And if you're making positive change in your life, then what does it matter? So that's another thing to remember, that, you know, people might remind you that you were a loser or that you're still a loser, but as long as you know that you're not and you're doing everything that you can to improve your life, then what does it matter what people think? So thanks for listening today. If you did find any value, you know what to do. I'm not expecting anything from you. I just wanted to share this story because I know there must be millions of people in the world that are struggling in their 20s. Certainly people from like working class backgrounds who probably didn't have any help like I did. I just want to say it's possible to make that change in your life, only if you want it, and it can be done. No excuses, guys, no excuses. So thanks for listening, and I hope you have a great day, and good luck. See you later.